We're here on the workbench with the Trainmaster, the Southern Trainmaster. I just bought the Lionel, not the Williams version. And, I go ahead and service these real quick. I mean, we just have, if you remember in a previous video of mine, I had the little Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe, the Zebra Stripe NW2 switcher. It had the other style pullmor motor, where these pullmor motors are actually mounted, truck mounted, where you can actually, to get to the gears and the worm, and you have to pull the motor out, where that other version, you can't pull that motor out. So the only way to get to it is to pull the armature out. So on this motor, you have to actually pull out the screws. I've already got this screw removed on that one. So that motor just comes out real easy. And here's your trucks there. Hopefully you can see maybe a little better on this truck here, where the there's that plastic insulation I was talking about on the other one. It's a circle, plastic circle in here that isolates your pickup here all the way until it gets to your E unit here. And so on this version, your hot power comes off your center rail, and that's what this is for. I'm looking at some of this soldering in here. It doesn't look, this soldering, especially this, does not look factory to me. So it looks pretty rough. This one looks factory. So we can look at the worm on this one here. It's, like I say, this is a whole different animal than that other version. So this one, you actually pull the motor off the truck. That screw that I pulled out that goes through the truck right here, and that hole there comes up through here, and it screws into here. So this is, when you put this back in, this hole needs to line up with that hole there. But you can see how gunky it is inside there. That grease is, it's still pliable. It's not bad. The thing of it is, it's, I'm going to say that's probably from 1980. So that's pretty good if that grease, this is that kind of brown grease that they use. It's kind of pretty nasty stuff, but it's not something that it's great to get all over your fingers. But this motor here, I'll simply take all that off, remove all that. I've got some, keep a supply of, Q-tips and paper towels. It's always good to have a lot of that handy. And, I do have some picks in here. It's handy to have different picks, where you can actually get down in there, and you can see that grease is, that stuff is, that's gotten hard and caked. It's more like a booger than it is grease. It's something you want to get out of here. Just the best way you can get it out, like say the Lionel repair guy will just flood this out with contact cleaner. I suppose some of this will come with it, and maybe it will and maybe it won't, but the best way to do it is just go in here and try to remove all that old hard grease, as much as that as you can, preferably all of it. It's really hard. I will tell you right now, it's pretty difficult unless you do just flood this out with contact cleaner. I can try a little of that here. See how much better it does. It's probably really one of the easiest ways to do it, really. Just flood that out of there. I'm going to try to do this without pulling this truck off. I don't really want to pull the truck if I can help it, just because it's more work to do. So I'll just take this, hold it over the trash can. I'm sure you guys probably can't see what I'm doing there, but that's okay. I just doused that with contact cleaner, try to get as much of that old grease out of there as I could. And it really is probably best way to try to flood that out of there rather than try to dig it out. You can only dig so much of it out, but that is some pretty nasty stuff. Want to get all that out, that old grease. You know, while I got this out too, like I said, I'll clean the, you can see this, you see those rollers. This engine has not been ran hardly at all. There is no wear on that roller. I mean, usually you're going to see a wear pattern mark. There's a little bit of, some discoloration, but there is no grooving of the, there is no grooves that it's actually starting to form. You can tell a model that's been ran a long time, it'll actually have an indentation where the center rail is riding on here. You'll have an outline of that rail. And so this model here, as you can see, is actually an 8-wheel drive, because you got 2 pullmor motors. This is simply a dummy wheels trailing. They don't even have flanges or anything. They don't have any gears. So these wheels are really have nothing to do with, you know, your power pickup or run capabilities or anything. So you don't really have to pay a whole lot of attention to those. They're just idler wheels. Now there is some kind of unusual for an engine to have no wear. That does seem like there's a, I don't know if I want to say an excessive amount of play, but there is some play there. So we get all this cleaned out. I'm going to clean out as much of the grease out of these. Yeah, see that grease in there it is just caked in. Something terrible. Somewhere, whatever I did with my wire brush, which I don't see. See if this will work. It's kind of stiff. You want to get it, all that old hard grease out of these grooves that you can. You don't want to leave any of that behind, because that builds up. That actually acts like a that'll actually block your grooves to where you'll actually wear your gears uneven, flat spots and that type of thing. So you don't want this, you don't want to leave this old caked in hard grease in there. This is why you kind of have to go in, and even if that grease still looks like it's somewhat pliable, you want to probably get it out, because underneath it's like this. This is caked in there. I'm just going to shoot a little of that out with the contact cleaner to see if I can get that loosened up, come off. Now, if you don't want to leave this in there, because this will cause poor running, and then it'll also cause abnormal wear. Get all that old caked in stuff out of there. You want those gears really opened up. Same thing with this helix gear in here. This is your helix gear here. And you can, and that, like I said, if you guys remember how big that shaft was on a Williams, look how small that shaft is on these Lionels. They're just a lot smaller. So your Williams engines are really some really good models. There'd be nothing I would be concerned about buying a Williams model, really. Wow, that's still pretty caked in there. I'm going to try a little bit of, see how good this is. Some good old mineral spirits here. Actually, mineral spirits is one of the best cleaners you can use on stuff like this, especially if it's something that could be prone to rust, simply because it's a non-polar cleaner. And it works excellent as a cleaner. There, we're getting all that. That's actually doing a lot better job than the contact cleaner, to be honest with you. So don't shy away from using your mineral spirits to get rid of this stuff. That's probably the best thing you can actually use to really loosen this stuff and dissolve it. Now see that I got those squeaky clean. And then these older style engines with the, the metal gears, the red and tacky, I think, is probably the thing to use. These, your post-war models were made during a time where they didn't have labels and all that. So they were actually, a lot of those had a, special brass oil light gear, bearings and stuff. They really have to soak in oil properly. That's why sometimes you can put oil on them and they may still squeak for a while until that oil gets incorporated into the metal to where it forms a barrier in there. So, if it's squeaking, just put some more oil on it. It just doesn't have enough oil. This will kind of foam up a little bit, so sometimes it looks like there's a lot going in there, but there really isn't. And I like to put enough in there to, to fill this up a little bit. just put that back in place. Of course, you know your coupler is going to be at this end. You know that's orientated right. And then, like I said, this hole here is going to line up with that hole. So, and you can see that it's kind of keyed here. You can see it's keyed for you too. You know, to make sure you go in the right direction. And that just simply sits in there like so. You want to rotate these wheels once you get that motor in place. You know, and then you want to look in here to make sure it's turning the armature in there. And we'll just go ahead and pull this bearing plate off, or the brush plate, I'm sorry. It's always good to have a little something here to put your parts in. And then keep in mind, you see this clamp here. This is off your field. It's grounding the field, so that's what that ground clamp's for. So when you pull this out, you just got to make sure you reattach it, because that's how they're grounding the field on this motor. That little fitting right there I'm talking about. Okay, we'll pull the brush plate off of this one. We can get it off. They're a little stubborn. That had some good long post. And we can see how dirty the armature is. And notice this one here, this is a little bit different yet. It's actually got a, look at that, it's got a roller bearing on there. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. So it's got a roller bearing on there, on the armature. This armature, like I say, this armature is not going to come out like that, like the other one. So this one here, you're just going to, you don't need to pull this out. You just got to make sure that we're engaged in the wheels here. It should seat down in there good. Yeah. Okay. All right. You know, we're just going to go ahead and use mineral spirits on this too. You watch how good a job this mineral spirits is. It's just going to take that off real good. So there's that. Moving all that old carbon. And then I'm going to pop these springs out here again. I like to clean the brush wells out. Find a small tip here. And I like to just pry them up a little bit. I don't like to, you know, use like a pair of needle nose or something like that. Just use a really fine bladed screwdriver like this. There's that one. This has like a V-grooved or V-shaped spring. It's a coil. And there, so you're going to have a, I don't know if you probably can't see that on camera very good, but you have a long leg and a short leg on it. And it's just a springy wire. The long one goes in first, and then the short one goes in after it. It really holds tension down on the brush when you have both of them in place. So you have to take both of them out and then put both of them back in. You know, to really, I mean, you can clean this brush well without removing these springs. But to me, I don't like leaving those brush springs in there when I'm trying to clean those wells out. So I like to get those out of the way. And then that way I can get this in there without those brush springs being in the way. And you can see how much crud I'm getting out of those brush wells. We'll just go in here and clean them in both directions. While I'm at it, I'm just going to clean this whole underside. You know, if there's too much, you can take and pinch a little of that off, and we still got enough cleaner on there to, you know, to clean them out really good. So that gets those brush rails clean. And then I'll put a little bit of, doesn't take much, just enough to soak that with some, just a little spot on your rag with some mineral spirits. Now, mineral spirits is not to be confused with mineral oil. They're two different things. Mineral spirits is really kind of a paint thinner. Mineral oil is, well, something. I use it for train fluid smoke, but it's sold as a laxative. And it's actually what Marx recommended you use in their engines. It's probably the same thing Marx is using. Now, a lot of the companies are going to have some additives in there that for, you know, scent type. And they put scent in there. I mean, I just use, I make my own and use candle scents. You can get it at Hobby Lobby. back where the candle stuff is. And, you know, there are formulas that you can use to mix it with. You know, and I don't really go by the formula. I just go by how I like to do mine. But mineral oil has a very low smoke point. It doesn't, you know, it's not really, you know, it doesn't really have a low flash point, but it's got a low smoke point. So I want to get these pretty clean as much as I can. They should be kind of copper looking. Those were kind of they're a little more copper looking now. They were black looking. See, I got a little bit of crud off of them. And I'm just going to clean some more of this. Do a little better job here. You know, I don't want to, you can go in here and use I think they have a fiberglass pencil that they make that you can use to rub on here to clean these, you know, to kind of polish these up. I don't really go into doing a lot of that, just mainly because I don't have the fiberglass pencil. You know, I have used a pencil eraser before, and, you know, there's some mixed opinions about that. Another thing you want to check and make sure of, it's important, you know, this why you can get some kind of erratic running on. You want to make sure these grooves here these are your commutators plates, and they have these little, they're always going to have these 3 grooves here because you got 3 different poles. These poles of separation, that's when the AC comes around, it hits that and it picks it up. So if you don't have those cleaned out, you're going to get, that's why you kind of get sometimes poor starting action and poor running action on these engines sometimes, because these grooves need to be segmented like that properly. These weren't too bad. I mean, they had a little bit of crud down in there, but they weren't terrible. So for the most part, I'm happy with that. I think when I got this off, it's time to go ahead and attach this. Go ahead and attach this truck back. There that is. I like to rotate those so you can, you know, you feel this moving forward. These are these pullmors like this are a little bit more stiff than the can motors. They will freewheel really easy with just your finger. These take a little bit more effort. They have a little more resistance to them. But yeah, that seems to be working fine in there. So I'm going to say that that's seated in there good. And these aren't quite as touchy to get repositioned. Now this motor here, yeah, you can see here on this piece of brass right here, runs over the top of this. There's a felt pad under here, and right on here it says oil. Well, what you do is you put drops of oil on this pad, and what it does, it kind of slowly wicks down. You don't want to flood this area with oil. So what this does, this just kind of a poor man's way of oiling this shaft without getting too much oil in it, I guess. But that's where you'd apply your oil, and that's why sometimes, especially with bearings like this, sometimes, especially if they're oil-light bearings, you can get some. You can continue to get some, some pretty shrill squeaking noises sometimes until that oil has some time to incorporate in there. And then you got to kind of carefully put this back on. For some reason that decided to pop out on me. I don't know why. That's why it's always handy to have a different motor. This motor here is actually, yeah, it's kind of strange looking on that one. This just goes, rare does that ever come out of there like that. And this one decided to pop out of there for some reason. I guess because I'm doing a video and it needs to find a reason to slow me down. And well, that popped out of there. Not even sure how big of a deal that is for that to really be situated there like that anyway. There we go. There's a plate back on. That's interesting. Yeah, so I'm gonna these motors are different for some reason with these windings. There we go. That's a little more like it. Okay. Make sure we put our ground back. Here's our other one. Make sure we got all that stuff good and tight. Seemed like this motor here was, yeah, this motor here, somebody's altered it for some reason. It's completely different. I'm almost, for some reason, somebody's been messing with this motor for some reason. And we'll go ahead and put these back in. We want to put these in so that they're faced with the slots, these little slots up, you know, facing up. And then we just simply slide this spring back in underneath there. And then there's a long leg, and it drops down inside that slot. And then the short one here just goes back underneath the brass retainer, and then we just push that down back in place. That's locked in good. Same thing with this one. That spring's wanting to just fall back in there. I'm not ready. That's normal. We turn that slot here. Put that back under. Now we got both legs of the spring in. They're locked down in the slots here of the brushes. So that spring's lined up. So there's that. I'm going to go ahead and pull this E unit off, just so it could probably stand to do with a little bit of servicing. Find a big enough screwdriver here. There we go. That was pretty tight. which it's good that it was. And this E unit is just held in by one screw. That's the ground for that. It's almost like they're grounding that motor off that way. And this whole thing, something's just not right about this. Yeah, that's actually, oh, that's broke off of there. That's what happened there. Huh. Okay, well, no way to really fix that now. Just going to be floating like that, I guess. So this is missing part of this cardboard, which has actually held this metal post in where everything's soldered to. So it's just going to be floating in there. But I wanted to get a good look at this E unit. It's kind of hard to see it otherwise. You got to almost pull it out of there. Actually, look at that. It's very, no wonder this was working so good. Look how clean that E unit is. You know, I'm going to go ahead and put a little contact cleaner in there on it. We'll rotate it around a little bit. That E unit's, wow. You know, that's why this one didn't have any problems with the E unit. It was really clean. I just don't, it doesn't look like this engine has been run that much. I don't know if you guys can see these little tiny fingers. They are very, very fragile. These are kind of actually somewhat tarnished looking. Those should be actually, you know, the contact cleaner isn't going to get that off of there. You know, to get that off, you almost have to, you know, get that oxidation off of there. It's almost like these have gotten hot. They look more like they've been hot than oxidized, but you know, it was working okay. But you know, to do these fingers right, really, you need to pop. I'd need to pop this apart. I can't see, because the underside of these is what's actually making contact, not the top. I'm just trying to clean the top of it off just to see if they will get back to shiny metal, to tell if that's tarnish or if it's like overheating. Is really what I'm doing here. And I believe those have been overheated. You know, it's still working okay. There's another set of fingers in here. It's kind of difficult to see. They're right there. There's 4 fingers here and 2 fingers here, and they make contact with this drum so that when it's in position, it actually throws it into neutral, forward, and reverse by however these are contacted. If you notice that the metal on this is different with contact to this, and there's no metal under that one with it in this position, and as it rotates around, it keeps changing that all the time. And this is how it reverses. Each throw of this, each movement like that puts us in a different position, whether it's neutral, forward, neutral, or reverse. So I'm not going to mess with that anymore, because it, you know, this E unit is kind of messed up with this wire broken off here like that. So I'm just going to stick it all back together, kind of haphazard like it was. It's not good that that's floating around, because this could float down here and get in contact with your, because this is hot, and if that contacts that's ground, and it's not going to be a good deal. Put that back together. And I'll probably run that like that, because this is actually what's holding that in place. That this metal mounting post is actually holding this wire that comes up your main hot. We'll just go ahead and tighten that down. So that's, you know, it's floating a little bit, but it's not really, I don't think there's any danger of it coming in contact with anything. Do have a bit of an issue here where it's, this wire here has come loose from there. That's not good. And you have to take, to resolder this is ceramic coated wire, so it's an insulation. So if you want to resolder this, like this wire broke off, this is the power for the coil to power your E-unit. You're going to have to scrape that copper looking coating off down to, and this is such a fine wire, it's really hard to see, but you'll have to scrape this down back to copper. I know that looks like copper, but it's it's a coating, and kind of have to get it in all. Helps if you get it all the way around if you can. That wire is as big as the hair, so that's how small that wire is. And I think I got it back down to, you can kind of tell because even though it's copper colored, when you get down to the copper actual wire, it's going to look shinier than that. This is something you kind of got to be a little bit careful of. You don't want to get it too hot. That's why it's good to have a soldering gun with different heat settings. And then whenever you're soldering something, if it's small, you want to use small diameter solder. So you want to try to put some, you want to tin the end of your soldering iron. I'm just trying to get enough solder on there to just to make this easier to solder. You always kind of want to have solder on both surfaces to join them, because it'll give you, you don't want a cold solder joint. That's what I'm seeing here, are cold solder joints. That tells me somebody doesn't know how to solder right. And there. That way you can get a hot solder joint without overheating that, because that wire is so fine. You can melt the wire. The wire will act like a solder if you get it too hot. It's that fine of a wire. So you can see that's soldered back on there again. I'm going to bend that out of the way, take a chance of, that is such a fine little wire. So there's that. I will go ahead and service this other motor. I won't, it's just like this one, so you've seen how this one was done. This one will just be identical. You don't really need to see that one too. So For now, that's the end of the session.